Hello everybody, Liz here and welcome to my channel. So please excuse my disheveled look. I decided to make this video on a whim. This video, which is books that have changed my life. So I'm only going to talk about books that have changed my life positively because I feel like some of us have lost sight of what books really mean to us and the amazingness and the goodness that comes from reading. So disclaimer, I have read some badly written books. Some of these you might even think are poorly written. They don't have the greatest messages perhaps or anything like that, but there are books that have really affected me, have really changed my life, have really changed my outlook on a lot of things, and have kind of shaped who I am as a person today. So enough babbling, let me get started with this kind of long list now that I'm thinking about it. Okay, so the first book that really changed my life for the better is gonna be Twilight. So the entire Twilight saga. I was about freshman in high school or 8th grade or something like that when Twilight was put out in theaters, so they were about to, show it in the theaters and stuff like that, and it became this huge phenomenon, as we all remember. Everybody was talking about the books, everybody was reading the books. It was Twilight mania, and I had been kind of in a really weird place in my life at that point. I had given up reading. People were like, reading is for losers. So when Twilight came out and people were reading, I was like, this is my chance. So I jumped on this bandwagon really quickly and I picked up Twilight and I read it, I think in a sitting, as I did with the rest of the series. I fell in love with it. I fell in love with like getting immersed in a story. Obviously now that I look back on it, Twilight is not the best written book, but it still holds a very special place in my heart. So because of Twilight, it's kind of opened the doors to all the rest of the books that I'm going to be talking about. So the next book that changed my life is The Darkest Pleasure by Jenna Showalter. So this is a paranormal romance novel. It is part of a series, and that's part of the Lords of the Underworld series. So I actually picked this book up, which is a third book in the series. So I picked this up at the library. I was 15, 16 years old when I was looking for something else to read, something else to captivate me as much as Twilight had. And I needed romance in my life, and I needed paranormal stuff. I didn't want contemporary, and I didn't realize that's what contemporary was for me. So I picked this up, and then I was like, oh my god. I am such trash for the alpha male trope and the strong female partner mate thing. Like, in real life, I'm not about that life, but I absolutely adore it in books, and Jenna Showalter writes them really well, and she opened the door for me to get into the Immortals After Dark series by Cressley Cole and the Black Dagger Brotherhood by J.R. Ward. So this opened the doors for all of my love for paranormal romance, and I just recently read this. I absolutely love my paranormal romance, so this book is to blame for that love. So the next book, or books, it's gonna be two of them, that really opened opened my life up to what is like urban fantasy for young adults, and that is The Haunting of Eliza Cray by Chris Wooding and City of Bones, the Mortal Instruments series by Cassandra Clare. So this book led into this one, but they kind of meshed together just because I read them basically around the same time. I picked this one up because I read this one, and yeah. So this opened the book for me to... I keep saying the book, I'm such an idiot. This opened the doors for me to read YA, because up until this point I had not read YA. I was very much into my paranormal romance. It was not exciting enough from what I'd seen, especially at the time. So this is about like 2008, 2009. YA wasn't huge. So this opened the door for me to really get into YA. I was like, oh my god, books with people my age are good. So these two books, like this one is I think more middle grade than it is young adult, but this one is definitely young adult. So these two books also kind of spurred my love for just urban fantasies and YA novels. So this next one is not a book technically, it's more an anthology of poetry, and that is You Get So Along at Times, It Just Makes Sense by Charles Bukowski. So Charles Bukowski is one of my favorite poets. So he is one of those people that you either love or you hate. His poetry is very crude, very vulgar, some people would say demeaning, so it's very much not for most people, but I absolutely love his poetry. I feel like it hits a very specific place in my heart and my soul. This is the reason that I started writing poetry. So this is back in 2014 when I first started college. My professor introduced me to Charles Bukowski, and I have been in love with him ever since. I love his work. I own this one in particular, and I own another one, which is The Pleasures of the Dam, which is this entire collection. But this book has brought in a lot of changes in my writing style. So I had written poems here and there when I was younger, but never anything serious, never anything myself. It was almost more to impress other people. But this author, this book, really kind of brought out my real self when it came to writing my poetry. So my poetry very much now is very raw, very me, and I have Charles Bukowski to thank for that. So again, he's not for everybody, most definitely not. I've heard people absolutely loathe him and his work. I love it. I absolutely do. I know that he's crude and everything, but I can't help but love it because it did change my life so much. Because of him, like, I started writing poetry, and because I started writing poetry, I'm actually writing my first novel, so it kind of just snowballed from that. So we have A Whirligig by Paul Fleischman. I hope I said that correctly. There's a 90% chance I did not. So I read this for my adolescent literature class last year. So we were learning about the tropes, coming of age, all that stuff for my adolescent literature class, which I didn't particularly like, if I'm being honest. But this book really got to me, not because of the storyline. I mean, I did enjoy it, but for the type of writing style it is. So it's a very short novel. It is a contemporary, which I don't usually read. The reason that this book changed my life was because I had always been reading like two perspectives. They're always in first person or in third person. That's the rule. Like, you either write in first person or you write in third person. You don't write both of them. So what this book did to me is it opened my eyes to the possibility that stories could be written both in first person and in third person, and they still have an extremely large impact to the reader, and they could even be beneficial to the storyline. So because of this, my story is actually written in both third and first person. So I have Whirligig to thank for giving me the courage, confidence to be willing to go down that path, even though it's not the conventional path, and perhaps it's not a path that people were gonna like, but fuck it, I'm gonna do it. The next one is probably one of the biggest influencers in my life. So Twilight was huge, all of these have been really huge, but in the last 2 years, this book, this series, has changed me as a reader, as a person, as a writer, as a fandom person. I mean, it is honestly the reason that I'm on BookTube today. And that is the Red Rising trilogy by Pierce Brown. I picked this book up after watching Natasha from Tashopolis. She did the hottest YA author or something like that, and I saw the book, and it was about a month before the release of the second book, and I was like, I mean, he's cute, I'm gonna pick it up. So I picked up the book, and so if you don't know what Red Rising is about, I'm gonna promote it here and for the rest of my life because I am trash for this novel, this book, this series. I'm sorry if you already heard me talk about it like 1,003 times. So it is a sci-fi dystopian novel, just set in the future. It follows our protagonist Darrow, and he is gonna get sent into the Gold World, which is the ruling class, the ruling caste in this universe. They live in a caste system, and it's his journey with this rebellion. And I think the moment that this book changed my life is when we realize that this isn't one of those fast rebellion is happening this very moment books. No, this was like, we're in it for the long haul. This is going to be years and years and decades in the making. Like, you are just the little seed that's going to get all of this started. And then it has like this entire plot twist in the middle, and it takes you a completely different route that you weren't going to, that you didn't think it was going to take you, and you meet these characters through Darrow's eyes, and you just fall in love with them. And this book opened my eyes to the love of sci-fi, to the love of just BookTube, because before this I didn't even realize that BookTube was a thing. So this was about December 2014. I didn't realize BookTube was a thing. I didn't even know people talked about books online. I just thought it was like something that we did in our homes and that's it. Red Rising was the first fandom that I became a part of. It was the first time I like physically went out, not physically, but like pursued fan art and fan fiction, and we made a Skype group to talk about how much we love this story after Golden Sun came out as we were waiting for Morning Star. I did my first fan fiction to this this novel, this trilogy. I did my first cosplay. I made some amazing friends both here in the States and across the pond in the UK. I started this booktube channel because of it. I had my first author interaction. I had my first book signing with Pierce Brown. So this book has shaped a lot of who I am today. Like, I made a booktube channel because I one day 2 years ago, almost 3 years ago now, saw a video about Pierce Brown, and now I'm here talking about my love for Red Rising. I love this book so much. I can't even describe how much I love this book and how much it's changed my life and how many amazing people I've met because of this book. So before I start crying, I'm gonna put this down. So the next book that really changed my life, my person, and I worded that really weird, so ignore it. And that is The Six of Crows duology by Miss Leah Bardugo. So my friend actually was the one that encouraged me to buy this book. I'd seen it around, I knew Crooked Kingdom had come out, people were kind of raving about it, but I wasn't 200% sure what the fuck it was about. So I picked it up and I read it and I was in love. I became extremely emotionally invested in the characters ridiculously soon. I think the biggest thing for me was how much of myself I saw in the characters. I mean, I've saw myself in a lot of these characters, obviously, but never so physically accurate. So we know in Six of Crows that there is an extremely diverse cast of characters. So we have Kaz, and Kaz has a disability that he wasn't born with. So for me, I never feel like I'm disabled because it was an injury that was brought on by my career in the military and by my love of sports. So it was something that I wasn't born with, so I was like, I'm not really disabled, like I can't give myself that label. So when I read Six of Crows and I saw that Kaz was disabled like me, he had an injury that was procured later in life, and he's still a badass and he's still a great person, and his disability defines him and is huge, but it isn't who he is, and I felt that really deep in my heart. I love Kaz. Then we have Inej and Jasper, who are people of color. I myself am a first-generation Mexican American. You don't see people like me, especially not as main characters, so we don't see that. And then Inej is like a badass. My friend compared me to her and I almost cried. Like Jasper being amazing and his color not impairing him from doing anything. And then we have Nina, who is a plus size amazing woman. Like, I am not thin. I have never been thin. Even at my thinnest when I was in the military, I was still not thin enough. Probably never will be. And to see that it's okay, that I can still be beautiful and a badass and amazing because of this book, like, it allowed me to see that. And I absolutely love it for it. Then we have even Matthias. Like, Matthias was kind of brainwashed in the military, and I was in the military, so like we have that. So there's just so much representation in this book, and I didn't realize that I wanted something like that. It's like good, authentic characters where it did not focus on their disabilities, on their ethnicities, because a lot of the times when I hear about diversity, it is like laser pointing and that stuff, and it's like, that's not what I want. I want something authentic, something where it is good, not just because there is people of color or blah blah blah. So I mean, I only just read this, so this has been really recent. So the last book that has changed my life recently, it is An Ember in the Ashes by Saba Tahir, and I picked this book up just this past month, so this is in January. I finished both books in January. So this book has changed my life because I have discovered not only, again, the diversity in this book and how it is a huge part of who the characters are, their identity, but it does not focus on that because the book is so beautifully written. I mean, the fight scenes in this are just beyond amazing. The plot twists, the way that the characters develop the world, not the world develops the characters. I think that was the biggest thing, because for a really long time, that's the one thing that kind of put me off fantasy, is that the world defines the characters, like in our eyes. Like, we see our characters the way that we do because of the world, and in this book the characters make the world as they want to, because it revolves around their story arcs, not around this fantasy world. We learn about it organically and we ease into it, and it just... And then Saba is like such an amazing person, and all of these books have really shaped who I am as a person today, whether it be minimally or not. Like, obviously the last 3 books, I think, for the most part, I mean, Red Rising shaped a lot of who I am, and so like all of these books really like just, I love them. Some of them are probably trash to people, and that's okay. I enjoy these books. I will promote these books, perhaps not Twilight like till I die, because I love them so much, because they had such a huge impact on me and such a positive impact on me that I want people to experience that. And I think I've gone on for way too long about what I love about these books, but yes, promote books you like, guys. Promote books that you enjoy, that you want other people to read, because we need positive books. Again, these 3 books, honestly though, oh, I hit the thing, life changers. Life changers. And then, you know, me and my trashy novels that I love forever and always, and I'm gonna keep collecting them because I freaking love them. Charles, my man, love him. So that is all from my rambling. I don't even know if I made sense half the time. I don't even know if you got the points where I talk about that they changed my life, but if you're still here, thank you for sticking around for so long. I appreciate it. So now I want to know what books have changed your life, guys. What books have shaped who you are today and why you love them? I would love to hear about your stories and everything. So yeah, that is all for me, folks. I hope you guys like this video. If you do, feel free to hit that like button. If you want to see more of my ridiculous face and hear my voice, feel free to hit that subscribe button as well. I would highly appreciate it. If not, that's okay. I hope you guys have a great morning, afternoon, or night whenever you happen to be watching this, and happy readings. Adios!